exciting. This is our second webinar of 2026. As you all know, we host these once a month, and we've been pretty consistent since 2020. So here we are, hoping to bring value and education to all of you. That's the goal. Strengthen our social impact sector. So happy to have you join us. Again, I'm Kirsten Stevens with the Kannico Agency. Please feel free to put your name and your organization in the chat. We find that we get a lot more connection and even people, realizing, oh, well, you're in Texas, I'm in Texas, and this is what we do. So if you also want to put the state you're in or the country that you're in, that would be great. But welcome. So happy to have you all here with us and going into this fantastic webinar with our special guest today. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right. So today we are talking about building grants or beyond grants, building a diversified and sustainable funding strategy. Those who have been with us for a while know that this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. So I could not be happier that we're going through this today with an expert, no less. So that's fantastic. All right. You all, I think most of you know me by now, but I am the CEO of the Kannico Agency. I'm certified by Board Source. I'm a CFRE with AFP. And I do a few other things, but my passion really is coaching, training, workshops, and sharing knowledge and education. Kannico Agency, a couple of things we do here: nonprofit formations, reinstatements. So if your IRS status gets revoked, hopefully not, but we do those. Management and fractional monthly services, organizational audits and governance reviews, board and leadership training, strategic planning, and then of course these which are our very favorite pet project. All right, so today we have Loretta Skiff with us. She is with Planet Grants. I'm going to give a little bit of a bio on her. Loretta Skiff is the CEO of Planet Grants, where she works with nonprofit and for-profit organizations to strengthen their funding strategies and build long-term financial sustainability. With deep experience across grant funding, government contracts, community fundraising, and corporate partnerships, Loretta is known for her pragmatic, real-world approach to development, one that prioritizes sustainability over constant scrambling. Through her work, Loretta helps organizations move beyond grant dependency by improving grants management, aligning revenue strategy with organizational capacity, and identifying diversified funding pathways that match an organization's growth stage. She regularly advises leaders on how to prepare internally through systems, governance, and planning before pursuing new funding opportunities. Loretta brings a grounded, candid perspective to nonprofit funding conversations, drawing from hands-on experience helping organizations navigate complex funding environments while staying focused on mission, resilience, and long-term impact. Welcome, Loretta. It is so good to have you with us today. I have to tell everyone how we met. Is that okay?
Yeah, totally fine.
All right. So I have been intrigued by Loretta and Planet Grants for a couple of years because they are our biggest cheerleaders on social media. And every time we posted a webinar or something that was happening, a workshop, training, they would jump right in there and they would share it and repost it and just say, come on, you got to go see this. Webinars are great. And finally, I just reached out and I said, who are you? I need to know who you are because you're such a fan of our work. And then I had a great conversation with Loretta, and I just I said, you have to come on our webinar. We have the world needs to know who you are and what you do. So with that, I am going to hand it over to Loretta, but welcome. We are so pleased to have you with us.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. And I see shout out to my unicorns in the chat room from LGW, learngrantwriting.org. I'm actually a coach at learngrantwriting.org, and we have won over $1.5 billion in grants since 2021 as a collective. So shout out to my unicorns. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we will get into why we're here today, right?
Yep.
So we're here because 2025 was definitely a change for a lot of organizations, especially depending on what service niche you are. And if you were relying on US federal funding or if you were relying on repeat funding, you saw some big changes last year. Maybe your funders went invite only and you didn't get in. Maybe your repeat funder said, hey, we're going to look to other agencies or change our priorities this year. So if you're only relying on grants, that can be very unsustainable. And we are here today to talk about things other than grants because I could talk about grants for hours. I do that every day, all day. I average 5 to 6 applications a month for all different types of clients. And we are here today to learn about stuff other than that. But you are welcome to reach out to us anytime you need some grant support. So definitely you can connect with us online and I will, at the end, give you the information to connect with me.
And just
I,
a quick note, sorry to interrupt, but Loretta, I
sure.
didn't mention in terms of the flow today. By the way, for everyone's knowledge, we're going to hold questions to the end. Well, I shouldn't say that. You can put them in the chat anytime, but Loretta's going to get through the content that she has, and then we're going to give you a good chunk of time at the end to answer questions. And then just a reminder, please put your name, organization, and where you're from in the chat so we can all get to know each other. All right. Thanks, Loretta.
You're welcome. So a little bit about me. I founded Planet Grants in 2021 to really build a truly sustainable career niche. Before I came to Grants, I was in pharmaceutical retail. I'm still a licensed pharmacy tech. Shout out to people who came from healthcare. You guys are heroes to me. Been there, done that. And I finally was able to just find a career that really suited all of my passions. I've won over 22 million in grants in child literacy, African agriculture, poverty alleviation, recidivism, 100K in Oregon for violence prevention, workforce development. I won 2.3 million in behavioral workforce education training last year for a university called UDM. And I believe that businesses can definitely positively impact society, especially in our niches with nonprofits, for profits, benefit corps. And my purpose is just to create a more sustainable world. So I'm here to help you guys really impact your dreams, figure out your funding goals, figure out where you're at and where you can go as an organization, and lots of little tips and tricks that you can do outside of grants to bring in money to make a better impact on society. So we're going to look at why grants alone aren't enough. We're going to look at how to diversify your income stream based on your growth stage, because when you really start as a nonprofit, and I actually just started my own nonprofit called Corgi Cleanups Foundation. We have zero money in the bank, but I already have plans about how to build us up slowly and surely as a new nonprofit. We're going to talk about what internal foundations need to be in place before you even think about fundraising. And then we're going to talk about core revenue streams that you can use, that all types of nonprofits use to be successful. So you guys know, if you're a nonprofit, you already know you're facing funding challenges. Some of you aren't going to see much today that might be different, but I do hope you go away with one thing today that might be new. So a healthy nonprofit only has 20 to 40% of their total budget, annual budget, coming from grants. Grants are essential for a lot of nonprofits that fit within that service niche, but they were never meant to carry everything about your program because they're not sustainable over time. We wish funders would say, hey, we totally want to fund you for the rest of your organization's life, but that's just not going to happen, right? So be aware that all niches are hit. Head Start faced funding delays in January. There were about 52 Head Start grant recipients across 22 states that could not access federal funds. Justice Climate Fund. We had a port in Seattle that actually almost lost their $60 million clean port funding this year. They had to go to court for it. And then obviously we've seen the Department of Ed take a hit this year, and they almost lost like 730 in progress grants, right? So it can definitely be a little scary time for nonprofits, but there are private funders out there, and there are other ways to raise funds for you guys to be able to not rely on grants. Because when you do rely on grants, you have limited flexibility of spending your funds. There's a lot of restrictions. You've got the grant reporting requirements, and you don't want to have money in the bank that you spend incorrectly because you might not be sure where the grant fund is supposed to go. So let's talk about the different stages. Like I said, my nonprofit Corgi Cleanups Foundation is at the very early stage. We're just getting our bank account this week. And then I have a nonprofit in Nigeria called Jethro Hope Support Initiative. And they are a baby nonprofit. They've been around about 9 months now. And my co-founder, Bishop Chukwu, just got a $30,000 grant to put out seedlings and other agricultural development in Nigeria for a tribe in Adokasa. So your early stage to me is about 300K in annual operating revenue or less. So you're filing either the postcard or the easy, or you're in that stage where you're always looking for new funding. That's the early stage growth. Then you've got your pretty steady where you're at 500K to 2 million in annual operating. You guys might have a development director at this stage. You might even have like a fundraising agency or a fundraising group in your organization. And then the mature stage, where we all would love to be, is at least 3 million in annual revenue above. And these guys usually have 4 to 6 revenue streams that we're going to talk about with sophisticated donor stewardship of all stages. And this is where we all would like to be, right, as a nonprofit. So I'm going to teach you how to build from 0 stage all the way up to the bigger guys and what they do right. So what can you do? Obviously, there's individual donors, right? You can talk about annual giving, monthly giving, planned giving, major gifts. Then you've got your corporate partnerships, like when Coca-Cola works with Oceanic Global and they put on a beach cleanup. You've also got corporate sponsorships where Nike gives out sports equipment to nonprofits in Oregon and Washington. Then you've got your service revenue. You can charge fee for service even as a nonprofit. What can you, just like here at the Kannico Agency, they're putting on webinars, they're putting on educational events every month. So you can figure out what your guys' zone of genius is. Excuse me 1 second. It's a little early for me. And you can figure out how you can bring in fees for what you know. And you can put on monthly webinars that maybe are a sliding scale fee. You can also look into government contracts, and we can definitely talk about that in another slide. And if you are curious about government contracts, I am learning how to get into them, and I've also applied to a few. You've got your events and campaigns. Everybody knows the gala. Everybody knows the fundraising events, the marathons, color runs. One of my nonprofits actually did like a paddleboard fundraiser. You can also do a retail store. I actually just recently talked to a nonprofit that refused to do a retail store because they're an ocean conservancy nonprofit and they didn't want the carbon footprint of shipping things around the world. Then we've got our donor advised funds, which I will talk a little bit about. I actually just had a training for my team with previous unicorn coach Jessica Stack on LinkedIn, and she is now an Edward Jones advisor. So we learned all about donor advised giving, how to find them, and also how to make your own. And then, of course, government contracts. We'll talk about that here in a bit. So how do you cultivate individual donors other than just walking around and asking people for money, right? That's kind of what I feel some development people think they do. You want to identify them. So the first thing you do in a small nonprofit is, who do you know? You're going to get together with your team and you're going to go, all right, here's my board. Who do you guys know? Do you guys know somebody who works at a local bank? Do you guys know somebody that works at a local electrical company or water company that gives out community funding? Do you guys know people who would volunteer to get your in-kind donations? And then, of course, you can use your newsletters for your small donors. So I know newsletters and social media can be very daunting for an all volunteer run nonprofit, but you definitely at least got to post once a week on your socials. You got to be usable. I mean, you got to be visible. So there's a gentleman that goes around saying, if you want to be fundable, be findable. And if you're not doing at least a monthly, quarterly, biannual newsletter, if you're not posting on social media at least once a week to show people why they should care and what you guys do, you're not going to get individual donors. That's just the way it is. And then when it comes to how to get it, just ask. Just put it out there. Say, hey, this is what we're raising for. This is what we've raised so far. And if you haven't raised anything, that's fine. You say, hey, we just started. Here's our fundraiser. This is what we need. Make a little TikTok video, put it up. You don't know until you ask. And if you don't ask, the answer is always no. So, one other thing you guys might not know, and if you are a new nonprofit, you can buy a mailing list and you can purchase these from reputable brokers like InfoUSA, Wyland, and Donor Search so that you can find people that give to your specific niche and potentially send out these newsletters in an annual campaign of mail to see what you get back. And you can definitely go online to their websites for more information about those. But most important thing with individual donors is to build that connection. People give to people they trust. People give to people. So definitely go out there with your story, be authentic, be genuine, have passion and excitement for what you do, and don't be nervous. The best fundraiser, Mallory Erickson, said, I'm excited to bring people the opportunity to give to whatever she's fundraising for. Your mission is awesome. Be excited about it. It is their privilege to come in as a donor partner to your organization. So don't lose that excitement in just trying to get those funds done. So, how do you cultivate corporate partnerships? Again, start with the people you know, your friends, your family, your coworkers, your board, who knows who and who works where. Cultivate, write that out, then have somebody go research those different corporations. Are they doing community sponsorships? Are they doing community grants? If they aren't, maybe just have a conversation. Would you mind donating $500 to do XYZ, to feed 500 kids, to help us build capacity in our organization, help us put out flyers for our next event? You never know until you ask. And then there's plenty of corporate giving programs, even for sports and athletics. So even for tech companies, for-profit tech companies, I found out that Microsoft has corporate giving programs for you all. And so you can definitely reach out to us and learn more about that. Another thing to do, even if you're a nonprofit, is to attend Chamber of Commerce and business networking events. I know some people are kind of like cringe, I don't want to network, but 2026 is all about your warm connections. And I actually had a conversation with a funder yesterday for one of my clients. Shout out to Cornerstone Craftsman out of Virginia, Alexandria, Virginia. They are taking youth and they are giving them construction skills starting at the ages of 12. So they bring them into the program, they help them with tutoring, mentoring, they help them reduce recidivism and make better choices in life. And then they also pay them to learn skills in the construction. And then they help them into the pipeline when they're finally graduated to get their OSHA certification, to get their driver's license, and to get a job. And they got a $50,000 donation last week, all because of their networking. And we met with the American Water Foundation yesterday because they went to a Chamber of Commerce in their local area and met with the president. And then the president sent them to the grant regional manager, and the grant regional manager met with us yesterday. And now we're potentially pursuing a grant, all from a Chamber of Commerce event. You can definitely leverage LinkedIn. So when we're researching grants and we're an instrumental and we have a list of people that we can reach out to, we go to LinkedIn to see if we can just get a warm connection with them first. Cold outreach is a little dead in 2026, but it still works. But don't be afraid to pick up the phone. Phone calls are having better reach overall than just the emails at this time because funders are exhausted, just like some nonprofits are exhausted. Just make sure that you guys are aligning your mission with the values and priorities of the funders and corporations that you're pursuing. Make sure that it fits because corporations really want that marketing piece. They want to say, oh, we gave to Cornerstone Craftsman and now 6 kids got jobs and they are out of generational poverty for them and their families. You can also look for matching gifts and you can also look for employer matches. So when we talked to the Water Foundation yesterday, we found out that the water utilities employees can actually give from their paycheck, and the foundation has matching days where they will match that donation to the nonprofit. So the lady we talked to had even donated before she got us a grant. So don't be afraid to go out and network. Don't be afraid to go out and talk to people and just realize that maybe 60% of your outreach might not get anywhere, but you're honing in on those 40% yeses. And you can also use tools like Double the Donations, 360 Match Pro to potentially have other organizations match when you're doing employer matching, corporate matching. And you also want to show that corporation like how you benefit their business goals on the back end of that. So when you're writing a private grant, you're like, hey, this is what we're doing and this is how much it's going to cost. When you're trying to cultivate a corporate partnership, you're going to be like, hey, we do XYZ for the people in your region where you work and where you live. How would you like to be a partner with us to help us improve that impact? You're inviting them into a partnership to do more good, not necessarily just asking for money from them. So just be careful how you're phrasing your corporate partnership outreach. So let's talk about fee for service, because this is probably a little known one for new nonprofits. I know there's this thinking that nonprofits mean no profit, but if you look at Newman's own foundation, they're completely nonprofit, but they're all of their stuff is everywhere. Like you see their dressings in the grocery store. So everywhere you go, you can probably see Newman's own products. And just because they're a nonprofit doesn't mean they're not making profit on the back end for the things that they do. So figure out your zone of genius and remember that your service revenue should enhance your mission. Don't go outside of your mission to find a fee for service model. What does your team already know? What do they already do? What can they teach? Figure that out. And then you can also offer sliding scale options on your training workshops, your certification programs. You can even rent out your facility. If your nonprofit was donated a warehouse, you could potentially rent that space out for certain things. You can also sell some educational materials, make some toolkits and things, and just put a small fee on it to get some revenue coming in. And like I said, find your zone of genius for your consulting. Do you guys do policy development? Do you guys help with family planning? Do you guys help with coaching youth? Like figure out what you can do, figure out what you can charge in the market, and then definitely go out and see if you can find some consulting hours to bring in some fee for service revenue. I worked with a nonprofit called The Ray, and they work with Esri, and they do a lot of GIS mapping. They actually worked with NREL to map 22 out of the 50 states for GIS mapping for roadside solar development to bring in solar and energy grids to rural communities. And they definitely were charging fee for service at the higher model for what they did on their GIS mapping. So just figure out what your zone of genius is, and you can definitely figure out the model pricing of the industry service niche that you're in and try and build some revenue that way. Now let's talk government contracts. Government contracts are like a grant, but in general, you've already done the thing. Government contracts, so a grant is like, okay, this is what we want to do. We think it's going to cost this much, and we think this is going to happen. A government contract is we've done this. Here's how much it's going to cost, and what here's our bid on what we think it's going to cost for us to do the thing that we've already done before. And you want to show really strong fit for and show evidence of projects and have references for people that you've done the work. And again, if you want to learn more about government contracts and if you apply, if you're a good fit, reach out to us. So while you're trying to figure out your fit and your cost for some of these fee for services, definitely like put a 10 to 20% plus on whatever the industry service is. That way you make sure that you're getting paid for your time as well as the nonprofit is getting their funds back. So one of the keys to success in building your service revenue is build the system before scaling. Like make sure you've thought about your price points, make sure you have your clear contracts, make sure you have your quality control. And then you also have to market consistently. Just like I said about newsletters and socials, you want to be hitting things about once a week at least. LinkedIn says at least 3 times a week you should be posting and commenting on things. And when I build social media plans for people, we're usually posting twice a week and commenting 3 times a week on the other days. And then always track your profitability by your service line. Like if you have a newsletter and you put it out there, and you're also maybe on Twitch for like art things, make sure that your revenue lines that they are profitable and you're not spending more time for what is coming in unless you're a new nonprofit. New nonprofits, be aware that you might not have profitability for the first 2 years, and that just it is what it is with a new organization. You're going to have to hone in on new grants, on capacity building, and on in-kind service to really build as a new nonprofit. So let's talk about different events and things that you can do and what the ROI is. And give me just 1 second. We all know about the gala. In fact, I think Vu Lee from Nonprofit AF was talking about how certain galas are a waste of time sometimes. And I've definitely seen people talk about how don't call it a gala if we're just showing up and there's like plastic on the tables. So whether you throw a gala or an exhibition every year, that's totally fine. I'm not knocking them. I actually was a sous chef for a couple years, so I know what it takes to put on a plated dinner. And I've actually helped nonprofits like Love to Read out of Florida do silent auctions, and they just kicked off a wine tasting. There's a company out there now that's doing wine tastings for nonprofits virtually. So be aware that there's different ways that you can do galas and exhibitions, even remotely with potential donors. The average cost to put these on is really going to
Yes,
matter
I'll put
about
you second to last,
Okay.
the venue.
if that's okay with you.
She said
If you,
last.
hey, can you
Mhm.
mute, please? Thank you.
She likes to be last.
I know.
Can everyone mute? Thank you.
So the cost of a gala is really going to depend on where you're doing it because a lot of it's the event rental cost. Maybe as a nonprofit, you can get them to donate the space for a certain night if there's a night that they normally don't book every year. And then they can go all the way up to $100,000 if you guys are catering in food and paying top dollar for that. And depending on how many people are going to show up, you can definitely spend some money on a gala. But in general, you get a 2-to-1 to a 4-to-1 return ratio. So if you're spending 100K, expect to potentially get back $300,000 on that plated dinner as long as you are marking the price right between the food that you paid for and how much people are paying per plate, etc. You've got your marathons and your community booths. You can definitely get out in the community and maybe even get a free booth as a nonprofit, put up a little QR donation code. And even if you have to pay to put up a booth, the average return on investment is usually 3-to-1 in the connections that you can make and the potential donors you can reach, as well as making marathons. Marathon cost, of course, is like the permit, the materials, the staff time to be there. And if you are thinking about having a marathon, just partner with established races so that you can potentially reduce your fee cost. Or maybe you guys will just make a marathon fundraiser where you can I don't know if you guys remember way back in the day where as an elementary school kid, you could go around and like have people pay you 50 cents per mile you ran on the track that one day the school did the fundraiser. You can do stuff like that with marathons to this day with people and have them pledge and talk to people and get them to pledge per mile or minute. And you can definitely fundraise without putting on a marathon, but getting your team to be in the marathon. Now, for those of you that are doing capital campaigns where you're trying to get a new building, you're maybe need to renovate your facility, or you're looking to make a major equipment purchase, it says here that you should probably get 50% in the lead gifts before going public on your capital campaign. I don't fully believe with that line of thinking, but that is across. I did a lot of research on this, and if you're doing a $2 million capital campaign, they say you should try and get 1 million in potential corporate sponsorships, individual donors, etc., before you go public for the rest of that 2 million. I personally would start from the start and just be like, hey, we're trying to raise 2 million. Then I'd go out and then I'd update people as we get more and more and see if we can't get matching. But it does say best tip on the capital campaign to try and get 50% of what you're trying to raise before you try to publicly get the rest of it, because 80% of your funds usually come from 20% of your donors. And then I'm sure most of you already know about annual fundraising, right? We talk about all the time, diversify your funds. but annual fundraising in general has an average return of 5 to 10 to 1. So if you're spending 5K, you can usually get 25K back. If you're spending 25K, you can usually sometimes even get 250K back, depending on the aggressiveness of your campaign. And then I've got some links in here for different places you can go to learn about how to do annual fundraising and capital campaign. Highly recommend going on Instrumental. They have great reports, they have great resources, and we use Instrumental for our grant research in general. So you can go look at their nonprofit templates for donor outreach to help you if you've never put together any type of donor outreach material. So the internal foundations for success in pursuing any new funding strategy, even a grant, is to have strong financial management policies. If you don't have a fiscal management policy already, like who's allowed to touch the money, who's allowed to take it out of the bank, who monitors the cash flow, do you guys have annual audits? Are you tracking your restricted and unrestricted budget tracking for donations and grants? Is your board engaged in fundraising? That's a big one. I don't know how many nonprofits we've talked to over the years where their board isn't doing anything. So get your board to give you a network. Get your board to just talk to a couple people, or at the very least, get your board to warmly introduce your organization to people who could potentially be donors or community connections or volunteers at the very least of board engagement. And if they're not doing that, honestly, get a new board. I know that's kind of harsh, but if your board isn't doing it and they're not showing up to meetings and they're not actively engaged, find somebody who is. Then you've got your donor management systems, which you can just track it in Excel for the newer nonprofits. And then you can go all the way up to some CRM databases, and Salesforce is a very well-known one. There's some other CRM databases coming out like Practivated. So you can definitely look up your own software systems that fit with your budget and fit with your needs. But just remember, any type of donor management, just be human, be authentic. People want to give to people. And that's the whole point of why we do what we do, is to give back to humanity in general. And then I know for our all volunteer nonprofits, capacity is a big one. Like you got to figure out, okay, who has the capacity and the hours to put on to engage with donors, right? So just make sure that the weight is spread evenly across your team if you're all volunteer, and that there's clear role definitions, there's clear deadlines, and you can potentially find stuff like with Instrumental for professional development if you lack a skill. There's also nonprofitready.com that has free certifications in grant writing, nonprofit management, fiscal policies. So there's definitely free learning out there for professional development for all volunteer teams. So what you should have just learned is that grants should only be about 40% of your sustainable nonprofit budget. You need to diversify your income streams to create organizational resilience. Your revenue strategy should align with your organization's growth stage. So if you're a new nonprofit, don't try all the things. Get your social media running, get your newsletter out, and then try a campaign or two, like do 2 events a year and write some grants if you're a new nonprofit. Don't go after every grant, don't go after every revenue stream. You got to start small and then build as you gain success. Before you ever go out for a grant, before you ever go out for a new income stream, make sure you have an internal system in place for the money. Build it and the money will come. If you go looking for money without the internal system built, you're going to burn out and you're going to maybe misplace funds, as we've seen in the news for some of the nonprofits that are getting audited. And just remember that don't be reactive in going after every opportunity. Make sure that it aligns with the mission and the vision of your organization when you guys are going out and trying to pursue different ways to get funds for your organization. So if you want to connect with me, we can drop these links in the chat. You can find me on LinkedIn with Loretta Skiff at Planet Grants. You can go to our website, planetgrants.com, and I will drop our little contact link right in the chat for you all. And I just, we'll go into the chat here in a second and we'll take a look and see at what questions you guys have and specific situations we can cover. But may the funding odds ever be in your favor. I'm a big fan of that movie and with Katniss. And then one of my favorite jokes is that once you write a grant, it's all up to the review gods. Once you're done, you did your job. You wrote the best grant you could. So to all of you that are writing grants, I hope the review gods show kindness in your applications in 2026.
I love it. Thank you.
So we're going to hit the chat now, and we're just going to see if there's specific questions and different advice that we can give to you all based on specific situations. Because I know a lot of the information I just threw down, you might already know, and you might have already tried, and it might not be working for you. And then you just try a different revenue stream that you might not have thought of before.
Loretta, one thing is sharing your presentation. Are you comfortable if we email that
Yes.
out afterwards with your contact information?
Yes.
Fantastic. I have a couple of
Definitely.
quick questions. I
Okay.
love the idea of a presentation on accessing donor advised funds. So I'm going to get with you after this and you can give me some hints
Okay.
on who to speak with. Mailing lists. Tell me about the success that you've seen from organizations that are purchasing mailing lists. Do you see that gets some traction?
I think it does because instead of just hoping and praying, like if you just mail things out in your local community, you don't know who really cares about your
Mm,
cause and the service niche because there's so many of them. Like I don't niche as a grant writer because I care about animal rights. I care about women. I care about children. I care about children's literacy. I care about homelessness. I care about recidivism and workforce development. So like
mm,
trying to find the people that care about your specific niche. Definitely
mhm.
mailing lists can help you hone in on that right population of giving without wasting a lot of postage on stuff that wouldn't give as good of a return on investment.
Okay, okay. What is the name of the group that does wine tastings for nonprofits?
I will find that out. I
Okay,
forget. I think it's like Couch and Sip, but I can definitely go look at Love to
okay,
Read and get that information real quick. And I can definitely have that sent out to you guys in
great.
the email for those that want to know.
And then how would you advise an organization that can't get past the individual donor stage because they're always responding to emergency needs? Far too many organizations forego building internally as though it's not ethical. I see clients like this all the time.
Yeah, so
So they're just not getting ahead. They're still responding to emergency needs. So how can they move past that?
that's a big one because especially like I actually just worked with a Ukraine and US nonprofit that works on the front line and
Mm,
they are always responding to emergency services and
yeah.
emergency needs, but they went out and they did corporate sponsorships. You got to go out and
Mm,
you got to tell your story. You got to find people that care about what you do. And I know, especially if you're an emergency response team and you're always on the front line of social services, you can face a lot of burnout. You got to
hmm
draw back in a little bit. Quit just putting the fires out, and you got to have somebody think about strategy. You got to take
hmm
somebody off the front line and let them take about strategy, figure out who's really comfortable and gets energized from talking to people. Because not everybody gets energized talking and presenting to people. You want to find somebody who wants to present, wants to tell your story,
mm,
and you got to get out there and you got to be findable to be fundable. So get
yeah.
on your local news, get on your local radio, get on webinars like this to talk to people, go to news, go to nonprofit or go to conferences. Just get yourself out there is really
Yeah.
what you got to do to get money coming in. Do a stupid dance on TikTok. I know that sounds horrible for some people, but like that definitely is getting a lot of attention just in general, all around, all different ways. Like we saw the coverage of Bad Bunny and the Super Bowl, right? It's everywhere. Everybody's got their commentary on it. Put your own little spin on it, make a little spoof, make it funny to people. There's all different ways to get noticed out there. And I
Mm,
completely understand burnout and I completely understand when you're just like, the money that I need isn't coming in, but don't give up the fight. Remember why
mhm.
you started and just get back in the trenches the next day, is really what
Amen.
I'd say on that.
Yes, absolutely. And, every chamber needs speakers, Rotary groups need speakers. Just don't be shy about calling people and saying, hey, can I come and speak about my organization? Churches, I mean, you'd be surprised, but you can speak at so many venues and in so many groups. Yeah.
Yeah, go to your
Can,
local Elks lodges, go to your local
mm,
VA posts.
mhm,
If you're military, like I'm the spouse of a veteran, we can get on base. Like go with what you have in your network and your
that's
local
right.
organizations, and uh, don't worry about getting the no. Just ask anyway,
Keep
and
going.
you don't
Hmm.
if you don't ask, you don't have anything in the first place. So
That's right.
definitely just realize you got to put that ask out there to the universe to get what you want
That's
in
right.
your funds and your donations.
That's right. Do you have any tips for us on family foundations?
Yes. So one thing I learned this week on family foundations is that some people, especially with the Ukraine nonprofit that I worked with, they were like, we don't necessarily want to get funds from organizations that fund Russia or companies
Mm,
that might be still doing business in Russia. And then I know that there's a red and blue divide in the United States, but be aware that some family foundations run both sides of the spectrum. So there is a family foundation that one of my grant writers outreached to, and they were talking to the funder, and the funder said, look, half the family is red and half the family is blue. And so don't worry about not if you don't take the blue side of the funding, they're going to give out more red side of the funding. So just be aware that just because that organization might on one part give to a side that you might not necessarily agree with, doesn't mean that the other side of the foundation isn't giving to the other side. So don't let just the overall presentation of a foundation put you off until you actually talk to the funder. And if you can't talk to the funder, they probably just don't want to be talked to, and don't take it personally. They're volunteers too. A lot of the family foundations out there are all volunteers. They don't get paid. They don't take a percentage of the income to sit on the board. And if they don't review your grant or don't want to talk to you, it's not personal. They're setting their own personal boundaries so they don't burn out. Just because their family left them a gift in a foundation that they have to run doesn't mean that they owe you their time. So just
mm,
don't take it personally. Just
mhm,
realize that move on to the yeses. You want to go to
mhm,
where the energy is, to where the yes is. And that
mhm.
is one thing, especially in grants. You want to go to where they are excited to give your organization, not just like part of the everyday life of grants.
I have two things for you. They're around the same topic, though. Are you seeing funders asking for strategic plans? And what is your experience with funders that are asking about succession planning? Because I just heard from a colleague that an organization was declined because they didn't have a succession plan.
That's really interesting.
It was my
Um,
first time hearing that.
Yeah, I would reach back out to the funder and say, can we meet about this? Number one, because
Mm,
that's honestly the first time I've heard about that in a
mm,
grant. But
mhm.
private foundations can kind of ask what they want. They could ask you to do
Yeah.
the hokey pokey on a video, and you'd have to do it to get the application, right? Um, ridiculous example, but um,
Yeah.
that's
What
really
about strategic
interesting.
plans? Do they ask you, are they asking for those?
I would say on the state and federal side, a lot of them do ask for pro forma grants, especially if it's a construction type
Mm,
grant. But when it
hmm.
comes to like strategic planning, to me, that's just sustainability. That's the sustainability question. Like, hey, what are you going to do after the grant funds end to
Mm,
sustain this program?
yes.
So I'm curious about what type of nonprofit got that denial and what type of foundation put it out there. Because if it was for an endowment fund, that makes sense.
Mm.
um, if it was just for like a youth service niche nonprofit, that's a little ridiculous, and that should go to crappy funding practices with Fuli.
I love that. I love
Personally,
crappy funding practices.
yeah, you
I
guys
hope
have never.
everybody's familiar with that because that is just, it's phenomenal. Talk about
Yeah,
entertaining. Some of the things that we hear that foundations are doing and asking for is just absurd. And it gets called out, right? So are they on LinkedIn? Is that where I see them? I
yeah,
see Julie. Yeah.
yes.
You all definitely have to take a look at that because you're just going to feel so validated when you see some of the things that are happening and a little shocked at some of the things that are happening out there. How do we, let's see, what tips do you have about getting into, wait a minute, let me just make sure I didn't, oh no, I did skip someone. Sorry, Allison. I'm finding that it's difficult to get corporations to support seniors and those aging in place. How do I find organizations who would be interested in supporting aging adults? I guess that would be individuals too. How to find people that are supporting aging adults.
Yeah, so I would say number one, ARP grants. And if you've never heard of ARP grants, you definitely got to look it out. They have one open right now for community services, community developments. I think it's only a 10K grant, but they have at least 2 or 3 releases a year. And there
Mm,
are organizations out there that care about aging in place. If you use Instrumental, it's really easy. You click into that service niche for seniors and aging, and it'll just bring up those type of grants. If you're doing it outside of Instrumental, you can definitely very strategically Google or whatever your search browser is preferred. If you're anti-Google, that's fine. It runs my life. But you can say community funding or grants open for seniors and aging in place in 2026 in February 2026 or later in your XYZ location. It's got to be that specific. Otherwise, you're going to
mm,
get stuff from 2021. And then
mhm,
just go down the rabbit hole of what you find and make sure the grant is open and then you can find the foundations that are potentially giving to aging in place and seniors. If you have a candid subscription, you can even go down to the city location, the county location. They're better about geolocation giving over Instrumental on research.
mm, mhm, mhm.
So be aware that there are also corporations like Dr. Scholl's. Dr. Scholl's has grants for seniors out there. So just find the right foundations and the right giving. And then when it comes to supporting seniors, like I said, go to your local Elks Lodge, go to your
Mm,
local VA
mhm,
post, see if
mhm.
you can't do a poker night or a bingo night fundraiser with them. They're out there. They got some donations coming in on smaller organizations that are already nonprofit and already giving out in the community. And then don't forget Meals on Wheels. Don't forget your local food banks, your local churches. You might be able to get with your local church, Allison, or local churches in the region and do a special giving for that Sunday. So there is
Mhm,
a total religious bent on giving that you might be able to
mhm.
go out and find for especially seniors. And I know for a fact ARP it has some grants open right now that you guys can look at specifically for that age
Awesome.
range.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, Della asks, what tips do you have on getting into the second half of a capital campaign? How's the shift from the quiet phase, and how loud should we get for the loud phase? Is it time to start booking speaking tours and making TikToks?
Yes, you have to be findable to be fundable. And you definitely should get loud and be posting at least 2 or 3 times a week, depending on the capacity. If you're all volunteer run, once a week is great. If you actually have people that you can pay like 20 bucks an hour to do your social media, or even I'm going to say it because some of you might be in other countries, you can outsource to other countries. You can go on Upwork and you can post for social media people out of the Philippines and other things to really expand, buy back your time on fundraising.
Hmm. That's
And
right.
while I am for America, I'm in America, and I know that outsourcing is a problem. I also believe that people in other countries deserve a living wage as well. So don't be afraid to go that route. It's not un-American, it's global prosperity because we all live on this same floating rock in the world. And so when it comes to the second half of the capital campaign, get loud, get findable, get fundable, start booking those speaking tours, get on your local radio. If there's somebody on your team that loves to ham it up and get into some kind of onesie and dance around just to get people's eyes on what you guys need to fundraise, do it. What's the worst that can happen? You get no money and you get a lot of laughs and you spread some joy in the world. Like
Yeah.
I just bought a inflatable corgi outfit for me to market for my corgi cleanups. So it is literally like a little cowboy riding a corgi. And I can't wait to actually open up the box and get it out
We're
for
going to need a
people.
picture of that,
Okay.
please.
Okay. I'll put it out there for people so that I can start raising money for Corgi Cleanups Foundation, which we do. If people want to know what we do, we clean up pollution. So I'm
Mm,
really trying to reduce plastic in the environment and to everywhere I go, I see trash and I'm tired of it. So I want to be able to take that trash, print it into something else with 3D printing, and that is the basis of Corgi Cleanups Foundation when it finally gets going.
go, Loretta. Love that. Love
All
that.
right. How to
How
find
do I? Yep, go ahead.
You have on here how to find FF.
Family foundations.
Family Foundation. Okay. So how to find them? Google. You gotta Google by geolocation. So go down to local first. And what I mean by that is city and potentially country where you're at. But in the United States, it's city, county, state level is local. And you just Google, you go, um, find me family foundations with grants and community giving that give to local youth service nonprofits, or maybe you're doing summer educational camps, insert service niche here that are open in February 2026 or later. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason, again, why you say that is because you might find stuff from 2024 that doesn't do you any good, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yep.
And then how to find what they fund. I use, again, I pay for Instrumental as a company. They actually take the 990s and they put them into visualization that's really great, where you can actually see what location they give, what different NTEE codes they give to, and that's for grant writers in general, if you don't know what that is. It's like, do they give to humanities? Do they give to education? Do they give to international? Do they just give to general philanthropy? That's an NTEE code, aka another service niche name for it. And yeah, you just got to get out there in Google and search for your type of who you serve, why you serve, and then the people in your area or the corporations in your area. For example, we were talking with coral gardeners the other day, and they actually started working with the resorts in the area that they want to put in
Mm-hmm.
coral. So they have a partnership now where the resort pays them to put a sculpture garden in their resort for people to come and scuba dive. And then the local animals actually can build coral off that, and it becomes a coral reef, therefore increasing species biodiversity, which also helps local fishermen outside of marine protected areas. So the sky's the limit on how you can partner and who you can partner with. Just make sure it fits the mission of what you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right. Andre is asking, I recently spoke with a nonprofit that has been around for 20 years but has never raised money outside of annual galas. What is an effective way to use their length of existence to start raising funds? I would say grants. Depending on what that nonprofit
Mm-hmm.
does, Andre, grants are probably a really good fit because funders want to see that you're sustainable without grants. And if they've never gotten a grant, that's actually a really good indication that they're sustainable and that the funder's money will go a long ways. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't know what they're trying to do. If they're a business development nonprofit and they do a gala for that, that's a little hard to raise grants for. But there are economic development nonprofits that are out there giving wage funds for profits, nonprofits. I actually just wrote a grant for Planet Grants the other day for software costs for capacity building for one of my nonprofit economic development areas here in Washington
Mm-hmm.
State. So
Mm-hmm.
there's grants out there for software costs, there's grants out there for capacity building, and your client might be, or your organization might be a great grant fit at this time if they've never really tried that. And I think that is all the questions in here. I'm going to see if I
I
can't
see
go
one
find
from
that.
Abby. Have
Okay.
you found AI to be useful in finding donors and organizations? You're a whiz with this, recommendations. I've run into roadblocks and wonder if it's a paywall issue or a query issue. I get a short list, but not much more.
Got it. I would say that
And
I
Holly is
definitely
suggesting perplexity.
got
I
it.
will say that Instrumental, by the way, if anybody wants to try it, they have a trial, a free trial. And it's a good way to see if Instrumental is a good fit, if you can manage the cost, but that would definitely be worth trying. Sorry, I cut you off, Loretta.
Oh, you're fine. So when it comes to AI, be aware, even though I am a sustainability major, yes, I do use AI because it helps me make the world a better place. And I'm not as well versed in Perplexity as Holly is, but you can definitely use Perplexity or GPT Deep Search to find funders. I did that with my Ukraine client
Mhm.
for international funding, and I did a deep dive into funders that give to. Hold on, I just found the Couch and Cork. Okay, so Couch and Cork is the company that now
Ah,
does remote wine. I'm dropping that link right in the chat for y'all so that
thank
you can
you.
go find it. And then You can definitely use AI. You just have to be very specific. So when I'm setting up a search for AI, the first thing I do is I would drop my client's website or my organization's website, and I would say, review my website. And then I would potentially review the funder. If I was going after a specific funder, I'd say review the funder website. Now help me draft an outreach letter and then give it the name of the person in the organization or drop a previous grant application or a previous annual report and let it do its thing. Work smarter, not harder. When it comes to actually doing lists of donors, that one I haven't done too much because I haven't really done individual donor giving, but Abby is a unicorn. She's an LGW. So Abby, I would reach out to Courtney and Coastal Nonprofit Consulting because her
Mm,
husband was actually a nonprofit specialist for 15 years doing campaigns for donations, and they can definitely give you some great tips and tricks
hmm.
to find actual donors for that. I can find grants and I can find organizations who give. When it comes to individual mailing lists or like looking in your local community, definitely works better for individual donation giving.
We're big fans of Coastal Nonprofit. They do amazing work. So if anyone's looking for support with fundraising, they're an amazing team. All right, I think that might be it, Loretta.
Okay, I'm going to drop my LinkedIn in the chat for y'all. Definitely feel free to reach out, connect. Happy to connect with you all on LinkedIn. And thank you so much for being here today and just letting me spend time with you all so that you can go out and do better things in the world.
You mentioned 360 Match Pro and Double the Donation. Are those organizations that automatically match gifts, or how do they work?
I think they're kind of like crowdsource where you
Okay,
go in, you make a profile, and then you can set up your own match and other people might match you on that
okay,
type of platform.
okay, great. It's worth a shot. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Loretta. That was absolutely fantastic. I hope you guys all enjoyed this. I'm going to go back to my screen really quickly. So we have Loretta's information here. If I can get my, there you go. So planetgrants@gmail.com. Feel free to reach out to her. We are going to send the presentation out with hopefully a photo if we can get one, but if not, with the other tips that Loretta mentioned. And so feel free to reach out to her, reach out to us if you have any questions. Our next webinar is March 10th at 11 a.m. Eastern. Our guest speaker is Tricia Anderson from KSDT. They are a full service accounting, tax assurance, and advisory firm. And really, what they're going to talk about, or what we're asking them to cover, is financial preparation for grants and financial reporting on grants. So, really doing a deep dive on what you need to have in place and then what the expectations are from the funder side. So, that should be a great one. But again, Loretta, I just want to thank you. Absolutely fantastic. I know it was a lot of information, but very holistic. And you know a lot about a lot of things. So it's just a pleasure to hear you speak about your knowledge and your expertise.
Thank you. And then if we want to potentially do a DAF one a couple months from now, I'm happy to hop in and
Yes,
talk
please.
about it. One
I'll
thing I
just
did
speak for
learn,
everyone.
so be aware you can make your own DAF. You don't have to give it over to the power of big philanthropy. You and a couple friends can get together, put in money into a DAF, and then every 6 months give it out to your local community. So definitely you can reach out to the best way to get into DAFs, because a lot of them are private giving, is to get to know your local financial advisors. Go talk to Pacific Northwest. Go talk to Edward Jones is one of my favorites. And you can definitely go in and start your own as a community and not worry about having to fight for major philanthropy funds with the big guys.
And good point, Delta. Thank you. Sometimes the threshold is low to get started with a donor advised fund. But the other part that I think is so good about it is you get to know that world. You get to know that ecosystem. You get to understand what donor advised funds are. And often it opens doors for getting to know other people that have donor advised funds. But you really start to get a good introduction to that. So great suggestion, Loretta. Thank you. All right. Well, we are right on time. Thank you all so much for being here. Loretta, thank you again. Excellent job. Be on the lookout for the follow-up email, and we'll see you next month. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Have a great day.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.